Major Tom Myers, I'm the Civil Affairs Officer for the 31st MEU. I'm an Energy Program Manager for the Texas Army National Guard. The job focuses on military installation, energy, resiliency, capacity, and performance, so the ability to keep military installation operational in a degraded environment. I EAS'd in May of 2013 and did direct affiliation into the Marine Corps Reserve. Direct affiliation is when you get out on one day and you're in the reserves in the following day. And so I checked in my reserve unit, and the reserves takes time to get used to. If your expectations are aligned with the active duty Marine Corps, it may not always match expectations, but once you find your groove and you start having to focus on the civilian world and what you manage in that domain, it can be very enjoyable. I attempted to go to civil affairs as soon as I got into the reserves. It's pretty competitive to get in those units, rightfully so, because of the deployable nature. And it's also, again, it's purely reservist, and so a lot of guys are competing for a lot of spots. It took me about 3 years to get into it, but I wouldn't change a thing. In the civil affairs units, activation can happen quite frequently. Marine Corps Civil Affairs is a reservist function. Different civil affairs group provide civil affairs officers for each deployment. Upon joining 3rd Civil Affairs Group, jumping on the 31st MEU, which is the one I took. Kamandag 7 is very focused on the civil environment, just because this is our second time being on this island. There are sensitivities to manage, and again, civil affairs takes a soft skills approach to entry into an area. We establish a rapport and build relationships, and then ultimately those relationships afford us access. It's a deliberate process, it takes time, and in an environment like this, civil affairs is the right approach to work with our host nation and to build interoperability across the forces. Civil affairs is really unique in a regard that we're intended to engage with the local populace and afford the U.S. military access to specific places tied to an objective. In this scenario, the objectives aligned with my civilian job and my role on the MEU. That's my job, to do the civil engagements and create the access. So once we have the access, I'm then afforded the ability to participate in some of the deeper level planning for achieving the objectives related to HADR response, related to energy. As reservists, we develop different skill sets that sometimes are informed by the corporate environment, or in my case, I work for the state of Texas. For the state of Texas, my role also incorporates disaster management planning considerations, and that is also coincides with very similar planning factors and communication styles from our representative from USAID BHA out of 3MEF. I had worked with her as a civilian, me as a reservist. We tend to mesh. You know, reservists are a different kind of breed in the military. It's not to say it's to say we are a little different in the sense that we come from the civilian world. We work with civilian counterparts all the time. I was pretty fortunate that I have the resources and the network from my civilian job to integrate it into this exercise. We were able to incorporate agencies from the DoD, but they're advanced and they're outside of the Marine Corps. We utilize the Army Corps of Engineers, Forward Engineering Support Team, Naval Postgraduate School's Energy Academic Group, and Marine Corps' Expeditionary Energy Office at Quantica. In the beginning phases of planning for Kamandag, when the objectives were identified for engineering assessments and infrastructure assessments related to the grid, as well as the problem set for this area is the inclement weather and the challenges it poses for the island life of Batanes. The training for this iteration of Kamandag is focused on infrastructure related to HADR response. The same components that I manage for the Texas Army National Guard as far as resiliency to the energy grid are the same planning factors that must be considered for resiliency for this island in relation to humanitarian disaster relief operations.